The celestial spire was a Concord's crown jewel, an orbiting monolith of translucent alloy and gravitational elegance, suspended like a blade above the gas giant Varian. It housed ambassadors, strategists, and bureaucrats of 1,000 worlds. No weapons, no secrets, only peace. Commander Celine Ward stood in silence at the edge of the spire's grand forum, sipping something vaguely labeled as hydrated nectar. Her gaze wasn't on the floating hollow display of sector trade routes or the swirling debate among delegates. It was on High Strategos Elax Vaughn. He was seated 3 tiers above her, immense, armored in ceremonial boneplate, unmoving except for the slow shift of his 4 eyes. Arrogance radiated from him like heat from a reactor. He hadn't spoken all morning. That, Celine knew, was deliberate. A flicker of motion behind the dais caught her attention. An aide in dark Concord robes approached the central council platform, eyes wide, holding a crystalline datapad with both hands. The forum quieted as the Chancellor of Concordia, a 7-limbed being of translucent skin and coiled musculature, held up a tendril. "There has been a development," it said in 7 overlapping tones. "A transmission from the Terran colonies. Ilera 9 has gone dark." The murmurs rose. Delegates turned toward one another, confusion thick in the air. "A malfunction?" asked a Vorkuli diplomat. "No," the Chancellor replied. "The outpost was destroyed. Surface readings showed total atmospheric ignition. No life signs. Emergency beacons offline." A silence settled like dust. Celine didn't move. Not her eyes. Not her breath. Her cup remained half-raised. "Who?" someone whispered. Zarkathi's ships were identified near the region. The Chancellor said carefully, too carefully. But their ambassador denies involvement. There is no formal admission of action. Celine turned slowly toward Elax Vaughn. He was still seated, still silent, still smiling. Back in her quarters, an oval-shaped room of sterile elegance. Celine dropped the diplomat's uniform onto the floor and pulled a silver case from beneath the bed. Inside was a single device, matte black, about the size of a human palm, with a recessed control surface that flickered to life at her touch. The AI voice that answered was old, pre-Concord era. "Identify." Celine Ward. Terran Command Authorization. Ares Protocol, Level 1. Accepted. Vault status, dormant. Echo Black locked. Do you wish to proceed? She hesitated only for a second. "Yes." Unlocking. "Command chain will be notified." A quiet chime echoed. It had begun. 2 hours later, in a restricted observation lounge overlooking the spire's lower orbital rings, Celine met with Earth's envoy. Ambassador June Deo was a thin, steel-eyed man in his 60s, dressed like a monk but carrying the weight of nations behind his voice. "She's testing us," Celine said without greeting. June nodded. "Or try and provoke us. Either way, Ilera's ashes speak clearly." Celine leaned forward. "We respond. We break the Pax Concordia. We do nothing. We invite slaughter. And we both know what the Council is going to suggest." June's voice was quiet, almost amused. "Restraint. Diplomacy. An emergency investigation." "And next?" she asked. "Apologies for offending our executioners?" He didn't answer. The stars beyond the glass shimmered against the curve of Varian's magnetic field. Celine exhaled. "They don't think we're capable of war anymore," she said. "They've seen our art, our colonies, our silence. They've forgotten what we are." June glanced at her. "Have we?" She turned to face him fully. "No, we just got very good at pretending." Later that evening, the council convened again. More delegates. More outrage. A dozen species called for restraint. The Zarkathi ambassador raised his crest and his formal denials, dripping with disdain. There were demands for inspections, investigations. Time. That word again. Celine rose from her seat uninvited. The forum quieted as human boots echoed on alloyed flooring. "The dead don't need time," she said. "They need truth." All eyes on her now. "We offer neutrality. We lived in peace. But neutrality is not weakness. And peace," she paused, letting her gaze sweep across the tiers, Isn't peace when it's enforced through fear and silence? The Chancellor stirred. Commander Ward, this is not. But Celine cut in, voice like iron. You think humans have forgotten how to fight. You're wrong. We just haven't needed to. Not yet. You think Alara 9 was an accident? A rogue act? It was a message. And if you ignore it, you'll learn something unpleasant. Her eyes locked with Elax Vaughn's. Humans don't beg. We remember. As the forum dissolved into chaos, Celine exited to the lower corridor, ignoring the calls behind her. She didn't need consensus. She needed confirmation. In a private chamber beyond the Concord surveillance grid, her comms implant pinged. One word only. Echo Black, active. She smiled, just a flicker. Vaults once sealed beneath Earth's crust were stirring. Silent orbital platforms, invisible to alien sensors, were warming up. Colonies long declared pacifists were receiving silent orders to awaken ancient failsafes. Across the stars, humanity's monsters were being pulled from the deep freeze. And all Celine could think, as she stepped into her shuttle and looked back at the radiant spire, they think we're civilized. Let's see how long that illusion lasts. Beneath the red sands of Mars, in a chamber no Concord I had ever glimpsed, metal stirred. Deep below Valles Marineris, far past the official terraforming layers, a vault door hissed open with glacial finality. Behind it lay rows of black canisters, dormant for 3 millennia. Stamped onto each was a simple insignia, a howling wolf with circuitry etched into its skull. They were called sleepers, not for what they were, but for what humanity had made them become: silent, invisible weapons, locked away to convince the galaxy they had grown past such things. Now they were waking. Celine stood on the command bridge of Acheron, a ship never listed in Concord registries, drifting silently above Phobos. Its hull was coated in grav-reflective polymer. To any outsider, it was just a cold asteroid fragment. The screen lit with confirmation. Activation signal received across 17 hidden vaults. Earth, Luna, Ceres, Titan, even stations orbiting Tau Ceti and Gliese 581. They had waited, some for nearly 3,000 years. Not one had failed. Status? She asked, arms folded. A tech officer, a broad-shouldered woman named Lynn Merrick, replied without looking up. AI systems at 87% reinitialization. Sleeper regiments are functional, memory clean. Nanite latency minimal. No biological decay in long-term hibernation. They're ready. Celine nodded once. And command, they've sent confirmation. Lynn handed over a small data chip. You're authorized to coordinate planetary defense under Protocol Echo Black. No Concord oversight. Finally, Celine muttered, inserting the chip into the console. A quiet pulse spread across the network. An encoded burst that told every hidden Terran command node the old world was over. The new one would be written in steel. 3 days later, Celine visited Earth. Not for politics. Not for orders. She needed to see it. She stood at the edge of the Kourou Array in Guyana, once a launch site, now a disguised suborbital gate to the void vault beneath the Atlantic. A warm wind swept her coat as she gazed out the waters, so deceptively calm. An older man approached. Weathered skin, silver beard, eyes like smoldering coals. Didn't think I'd see this place again, he said. Colonel Brandt, she said, offering her hand. Still breathing? He laughed dryly. Just barely. Took up fishing. That lasted a week. Celine glanced around. Dozens of others were arriving. Officers in civilian clothes, command AI in humanoid shells, operatives long thought dead. She knew most by name. Legends that had disappeared during disarmament. All coming home. She gestured toward the vault entrance. We're pulling the trigger. Brandt didn't smile. We never really put the gun down. On the far side of the galaxy, Elax Vaughn stood inside a Zarkothi dreadnought, the Sovereign Rend. His officers had brought disturbing reports. 3 of our scouts near Sol went silent. No transmissions. No debris. Elax flexed his armored fingers. Retaliation? Unlikely. Their systems still mask all military signatures. It's as if the ships never existed. He grunted. So they've been preparing in secret. As expected, another officer, younger, more hesitant, added, Strategos, if they have such capabilities, why the silence for 3 millennia? Elax turned, voice low and cold. Because they waited for us to strike first. He leaned in. That was a mistake. Back in orbit above Earth, Selene stood inside the vault's command core. The room was buried kilometers beneath the seafloor, shielded by artificial crust layers, tectonic dampeners, and gravitic camouflage. Around her, displays showed Terran movements across the galaxy. Sleeper fleets warming up, logistic stations hidden in moons blinking to life, entire weapon systems previously thought mythical now validated. Time to roll out assets, said Lynn over the comms. Phase 1. Selene shook her head. Not yet. I want them scared. Not just surprised, terrified. She keyed a direct line to a relay buoy near the Concord Central Hub. A transmission queued, encoded in frequencies once banned by the Concord Charter. A signal no alien had heard in centuries. Old Earth music. Specifically, Wagner, Ride of the Valkyries. On dozens of alien stations, in the heart of peaceful enclaves and unarmed academies, the music crackled through diplomatic bands. Strange, alien, violent, brass and percussion in thunderous unity. A chorus of war. Concord officials scrambled to identify the source. Selene's voice followed the final notes. This is Earth. You broke the silence. You will now learn what grows in silence. The transmission cut. Selene met June Deo again, this time in Earth's deep orbital station, Aphelion Prime. He looked exhausted. You forced their hand. No, she said calmly. They forced ours. I'm just making sure they know what's coming. He studied her. Do you want war, Selene? I want survival, she answered. The kind that doesn't rely on someone else's permission. June took a breath. And if the Concord turns against us entirely? She leaned forward. Then we show them what they've forgotten. That humans didn't survive Earth's history by being merciful. We survived by adapting faster than anyone else. Her voice turned quiet. I see. And right now we're adapting to war again. On the dark side of Luna, the Nightfall Bastion bloomed into light. Thousands of orbital platforms aligned in geometric patterns. Ancient kinetic launchers retracted shielding. Smart dust swarmed in atmospheric simulation. Fleet 01 deployed in complete silence. No declaration. No warning. Only activation. Each ship bore no insignia. Just matte black holes. Holes that devoured light and emitted no heat trace. At the center floated the flagship Argent Ghost, shaped like a blade. Selene's flagship. She watched from the command deck. Fingers folded behind her back. Lynn stood beside her. Where to first? Ilera 9's ruins, Selene said. We're going to bury the silence and start writing the response. From orbit, the planet looked scorched, its atmosphere thin, choking veil of ash and ionized metal. Below, what used to be forests and oceans now burned with an unnatural, glassy shimmer. Radiation danced across the equator like a slow ghost. No wind, no voices, no life. Commander Selene Ward stood at the observation deck of the Argent Ghost, arms crossed, jaw set. Behind her, data feeds mapped every anomaly, every pattern. Localized plasma ignition, Lynn Merrick reported, tapping through holograms. Designed to fry atmospheric layers but leave orbital debris intact. Surgical. Cold. Zarkathi? Selene asked. Definitely. Their signatures all over it. But they made sure to leave room for denial. Selene didn't blink. Doesn't matter. We're not here to prove they did it. We're here to show what happens next. She turned to the comms officer. Initiate broadcast. The message reached every Concord relay node within 12 parsecs. It wasn't filtered. It wasn't encrypted. It wasn't even polite. It was Selene, standing in front of the Ilera system's devastation. The burned world stretched behind her like a warning. This is Commander Selene Ward of Earth. What you see behind me was once a neutral colony. No weapons. No defense systems. No military presence. It was destroyed. Civilians, children, incinerated. You told us peace meant disarmament. You told U.S. war was a thing of the past. You told us neutrality would protect us. You lied. You wanted silence. Now you'll hear what it sounds like when that silence breaks. She cut the feed. An hour later, 3 Concorde ships appeared on the outer edge of the system. Non-combat diplomatic cruisers flagged in silver. They hailed immediately. Commander Ward, this is Envoy Cyril Vaughn of the Concorde Central Council. We request a cease in hostile communications. Your actions are escalating tensions. Celine appeared on their bridge in a projected link, flanked by Lynn and Colonel Brandt. Tensions were escalated when our people were turned to dust, she said. This isn't hostility. It's clarity. Envoy Cyril frowned. We are working to open formal dialogue. Too late. Celine's voice stayed level calm. 3,000 years, we played by your rules. We built cities, art, culture. You feared our past, so we buried it, but we never erased it. Brandt stepped forward. Tell your council this. Earth remembers how to make war. We just forgot how to enjoy it. Celine added, almost quietly, and you reminded us. The transmission cut again. Back on the Sovereign Wren, High Strategos Elax Vaughn slammed his clawed fist into the console. The Concorde broadcast had reached every major species, and instead of causing fear, it was sowing unrest. Their threats are primitive, hisses our Kathi officer. Elax growled. Their restraint was primitive. Now they're showing teeth. He gestured toward a projected map of Terran movements, dozens of signal blips, all freshly awakened. They had this waiting beneath our noses. Hidden fleets, ghost platforms, psychological tactics, and they're not afraid to burn their own silence. His second-in-command shifted uneasily. Shall we deploy additional forces? Elax considered, then narrowed his eyes. No, let them come. We still have the numbers. And they've never faced a full-scale galactic war. He paused. But prepare the skirmish fleets. Earth just declared themselves a threat. Back in the Sol System, at the covert Terran base on Ceres, data flowed like a river of knives. Dozens of minor border outposts across neutral space were suddenly receiving encrypted signals. Not orders, offers. Terran AI, embedded centuries ago in deep diplomatic cores, began activating contingency subroutines. Subtle things. Fear triggers. Cultural ghost codes. 1,000 ways to fracture society without firing a shot. In one such colony, a Trally governor froze mid-sentence during a broadcast as an ancient Earth lullaby began playing over the emergency system. It was impossible. That frequency hadn't existed in 1,200 years. Trally citizens panicked. The broadcast played again. Celine's voice in flawless Trally dialect. We know your pain. We remember what fear feels like. We just stopped letting it control us. Then silence. No missiles. No soldiers. Just the pressure of something waking up in the dark. Lynn approached Celine in the war room aboard Argent Ghost, eyes sharp. We've intercepted chatter. Some Concorde worlds are beginning to question the Zarkathi narrative. Civilian protests. Demands for investigations. They don't trust the silence anymore. Celine folded her arms. Good. Doubt is the first breach in an empire. Brandt studied a red-marked star chart. Zarkathi still control 25 battle groups. And they're watching us. Every ship we move, they track. Celine didn't hesitate. Then we give them something to track. She highlighted a star system. Narok Minor, a known Zarkathi supply route. No military targets. Just logistics and fuel. She turned to Lynn. Deploy stealth fighters. Blackout op. No survivors. I want them wondering if they lost a fleet or misplaced it. 10 hours later, the Narok station blinked out existence. Not bombarded, deleted. The wreckage drifted in precise spirals, debris etched with precision cuts, magnetic drive cores sabotaged mid-burn. No alarms. No distress calls. Just absence. Zarkathi command was shaken. Impossible, their analysts said. No known Concorde technology can neutralize that fast. It wasn't Concorde tech. It was human design, engineered during exile, perfected in secret. Celine stood alone on the observation deck once more. Ilera, 9 rotated silently beneath her. Lynn's voice came over the comm. We confirmed the Zarkathi fleets are repositioning. They're scared. Celine didn't smile. She just watched the planet's burned clouds swirl, a constant reminder of what peace had cost. They thought we forgot, she said quietly. But you don't forget the fire. You just learn to keep it caged. Brant stepped beside her, silent for a long while. When do we strike next? He asked. Celine's eyes glinted. When the galaxy starts laughing with us instead of at us. In less than a week, 3 key Zarkathi refueling posts had gone dark. No distress calls. No sensor anomalies. Just a race. Concord fleets dispatched to investigate found only spirals of metal fragments and the unmistakable precision of Terran strikes. It wasn't destruction, it was surgery. And yet, Earth said nothing. No declarations. No parades. Just silence. Inside the Concord High Council chamber, chaos bloomed. Ambassadors shouted across tiers, voices strained. Some accused the Zarkathi of baiting genocide. Others called for Earth's expulsion from the Concord. A few, quiet, trembling, wondered aloud if they were next. At the center, Chancellor Orenthal pulsed dimly under pressure. Order. It cried in its 7-layered voice. We must maintain order. A delegate from the IO-Sari, her translucent face pale, leaned forward. They attacked without provocation. No, replied the Tselek envoy. They responded. The provocation was Ilera. Then why attack supply lines? Why not issue a formal complaint? The chamber hushed. High Strategos Elax Vaughn rose from his tier. His presence alone silenced the floor. They do not complain. They do not bargain. They respond like predators, he said. The humans have shown their nature. They are not to be reasoned with. They must be isolated or eradicated. Before anyone could speak, the chamber lights dimmed. Unauthorized transmission. Every screen in the hall blinked. A single image, Earth, rotating slowly in shadow, with a phrase written in ancient Terran Latin. Si vis pacem, parabellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. No sound, no voice, just a phrase. When the lights returned, no one spoke for a full minute. Back aboard Argent Ghost, Celine watched it all unfold from a private channel. Lynn stood behind her, arms folded. They're splintering. The IO-Sari and Tselek are refusing to send ships. Half the minor species are pulling back to home systems. Fear fractures, Celine murmured. Always has. Always will. Colonel Brandt entered the room, helmet tucked under his arm. Zarkathi are pulling fleets from the Doran Expanse. Looks like they're preparing a first strike operation. They've gone from watching us to bracing for us. Celine didn't look away from the screen. Let them brace. They still don't understand what they woke up. Centuries ago, Earth's final wars were fought not with armies, but simulations. Nations realized the end would come too quickly if fought for real. So, they built the War Garden, a distributed AI simulation where generals played digital battles to test strategies, optimize conflict without real-world loss. Earth's last true warriors were raised in that garden. Celine had been one of them. It was there she learned that the winner wasn't the one with bigger fleets. It was the one who could make their enemy think twice. Celine met with Earth's inner command the next cycle. Holograms of Earth's last true leaders, military, strategic, AI, in a sealed node buried beneath Antarctica. June Deo spoke first. The Concord is unstable. The Zarkathi are furious, but they're afraid. And the rest are listening to us now, even if they won't admit it. Celine nodded. They watched us plant gardens and paint murals for 3,000 years. Now, they don't know what to believe. That doubt is our wedge. One of the AI voices crackled to life. Should we reveal full fleet strength? No, Celine said. We show just enough to make them imagine the rest. Another general leaned forward. And the wolves? Ready, she replied. Fully reactivated. War-born units retrained. Stealth-enabled, autonomous regiments tested across 6 environments. We're moving them in now. June looked her in the eye. When this ends, what does peace look like? Celine's answer was immediate, stronger, honest, earned. The first visible strike came at Growlithe. 6. A Zarkothian mining world at the edge of neutral space. The attack lasted 8 minutes. 8. An orbital platform blinked to life. Unregistered, cloaked until ignition, and launched a payload of gravitic destabilizers into the upper atmosphere. It didn't explode. It folded space, breaking tectonics at the root. The entire northern continent collapsed into a slow-motion sinkhole. As survivors fled, drones descended, Terran-engineered, non-lethal. They marked structures with paint, tagged key resource depots, then left. A message broadcast on every frequency. This is not conquest. This is reminder. Your silence after Lara 9 was betrayal. Your fear now is wisdom. Choose who you stand with. On dozens of Concord worlds, reaction turned to rebellion. Peaceful protests on Ion Delta turned violent as citizens demanded their leaders investigate Alara honestly. On Drexen, a military governor refused Zarkothi orders for conscription, citing humanitarian neutrality. One species, in Rio, declared public support for Earth. This is not a war for dominance, their high voice said. It is a war against selective memory. And Earth remembers what others have conveniently forgotten. The Concord tried to hold, but the wolves were running. Celine returned to her quarters aboard Argent Ghost. A personal message was waiting. Anonymous origin, ancient encoding. She played it. Elax's voice. You think this is a victory? You are not gods, human. You are beasts with new weapons. And I will remind you what happens to beasts who grow too loud. She replayed it twice, then deleted it. Status? She asked Lynn, stepping into the war room. New intelligence, Lynn said. Elax has moved 3 fleets to the edge of the Ivlos corridor. They're baiting us. Brant snorted. They wanted decisive engagement. Old school shock and awe. Fast, brutal, overwhelming. Celine narrowed her eyes. Then they're still thinking like empires. She tapped the hologram. I want every black cell drone we have in that corridor. Total silence. Make it look like we vanished. Lynn raised a brow. You want to make them think we ran? No, Celine smiled thinly. I want them to follow. Beneath the veneer of galactic diplomacy, something ancient had returned. Not rage, not revenge, instinct. The Concord tried to civilize the galaxy by suppressing the predator in all species. But humans had never exorcised their wolves. They had trained them, and now they were running free, clean, controlled, and terrifying. No signals, no motion, nothing but starlight stretched across a corridor of interstellar dust. Elax's 3 fleets entered without resistance, expecting Terran ambush patterns. Nothing appeared. No drones. No heat blooms. No anomalies. Just void. It's a trap, muttered one of his lieutenants. Elax stood on the command deck of the Sovereign Wren, his glare fixed on the forward display. Or it's bait, he said coldly. They want us to hesitate. He didn't. Push forward. Sweep pattern. Standard spread. If they want to hide, we'll flush them out. The fleets moved deeper. Behind them, reality folded. Above the Ivlos corridor, just beyond natural gravitational sightlines, the Argent Ghost decloaked. It wasn't alone. A Terran warline, 12 vessels wide, 7 layers deep, formed behind it. Some ships were sleek, dart-like, engineered for surgical hits. Others were blunt, dark towers with no visible engines, their hulls humming with energy signatures that shouldn't exist. And then the Oblivion-class dreadnoughts appeared. Wolves in the dark, finally unsheathed. Celine stood on the bridge, calm. Position confirmed, Lynn said. Zarkothi formation is committed. We're behind their core line. Full sensor blackout held. Broadcast. Brant nodded. Live and unfiltered. Celine stepped forward, her voice cutting into every Zarkothi channel. You wanted a war. You assumed we'd run. Now, you'll understand what running feels like. She raised her hand. Engage. The first wave wasn't visible. It came in the form of pulse inversion warheads, silent, non-luminous. They disabled hull sensors and turned internal comms into static. Ship crews tried to scream orders through scrambled decks. Lights blinked, engines stuttered, weapons misfired. Then came the soundless drones, too small to track, too fast to target. They sliced through hangars, cut reactor links, and shattered bridge glass with surgical indifference. Within 6 minutes, the outer line of Zarkathi escorts were either disabled or drifting. Not one human had boarded. Not one had shouted. The silence was the war. Elax watched in disbelief as the Krathels might explode from the inside. No visible projectile, no weapon trail. Get me visual, get me something. He turned his officers, but half were unconscious. Oxygen venting. Automated turrets firing into empty air. How are they doing this? On screen, the human fleet advanced, not with speed, but inevitability. No drama, no music, just quiet precision. The kind that came from a species that had spent 3,000 years preparing to end a war in one blow. Back aboard the Argent Ghost, Lynn called out, "Third Zarkathi cruiser cluster attempting retreat." Celine nodded once. "Let them." Brant blinked. "Let them? They'll run. And while they run, they'll broadcast. That's how fear spreads." She moved to the main screen, zooming out from the battle. "Any contact from Concord Central?" "None," Lynn replied. "They're watching. Every feed we open to them is still active." Celine exhaled. "Good. Let them see." From the far edges of Concord space, entire systems tuned into the battle, not because they were ordered, but because Terran signals had overridden every information channel, every backdoor frequency Earth had ever embedded in Concord tech, now reactivated like fire through dry leaves. They saw Zarkathi ships fall without a single Terran loss. They saw silence weaponized. They saw the myth of human passivity collapse in real time. And then Celine appeared on every screen. "You feared what we might become, but you never asked what we prepare to become. We buried our war gods beneath silence, not peace. Now we've unearthed them." The Sovereign Wren finally fired back. Full torpedo volley, flak barrage, point defense nets activated. The air shimmered with overdrive heat signatures. Human drones vanished in bursts of kinetic disruption. Celine watched calmly. "They're finally fighting properly." Brant smirked. "You almost sound proud." "I'm not," she said. "I'm satisfied." She gave the final order. "Cut the head." A single beam from the Argent Ghost lanced across the battlefield. Silent, white-hot, pinpoint. It pierced through the Sovereign Wren's command hull, melted its neural core, and folded the entire battleship into its own gravitic well. No explosion, just vanishment. Elax Von died without a word. In the aftermath, the remaining Zarkathi ships powered down. No surrender. No defiance. Just stillness. A Terran boarding unit transmitted one phrase across the corridor. "You are not our enemies. You were just the loudest ones in the room." 3 days later, the Concord Council reassembled. No shouting this time. No proclamations. Only silence. Ambassador June Deo stood in Celine's place, addressing the chamber from a simple podium. "Earth will not ask for retribution," he said. "We don't want your worlds. We don't want your surrender. We want one thing." He paused. "Truth." He gestured to a rotating hollow recording of Alera 9, then to a feed of the Ivalos battle. "We were told peace was survival, but peace enforced through fear isn't peace. It's delay. We survived your delay. Now we will lead something real." Celine watched from Earth, seated on a cliff overlooking the Pacific. No uniform, no orders, just her. Brant joined her, tossing a stone into the surf. "They're calling it the Silence Doctrine." She raised an eyebrow. "Standard Terran response now. Swift, surgical, no declarations, no drama, just quiet resolve. Concord's rewriting its defense protocols to match us." Celine chuckled softly. "Took them long enough." He sat beside her. "Are we done?" She thought for a long moment. "No, but we're remembered." She looked out at the sea. "And now the galaxy knows. You don't corner wolves that raise flowers.